Business with Stephen. We're going to carry on talking about those debates in the US, or that debate in the US. What have the markets been reacting? In what way?
Well, the currency markets trade, of course, 24 hours a day, so they were open all through this debate in the United States. And there were distinct moves as a result of its outcome. The Mexican peso jumped by almost 2% in trading in Asia to around 19.5 pesos to the dollar. That's seen as a sign that investors are more confident of Hillary Clinton's chances of winning the presidential election after the debate. Now, that's because Donald Trump's position on things like trade has created a lot of uncertainty on the markets in recent months. That's seen emerging market currencies like the peso weaken in recent months, and those perceived to be what are called safe haven assets like the Japanese yen. Investors have been rushing to put their money in that. So to give us an idea today, the yen is much weaker, the peso is much stronger. People are willing to take more risks with their money, which generally seems to indicate that they don't think Donald Trump is as likely to become president as perhaps before.
It's incredible how quickly they react, isn't it? What about the rest of the markets, Steve?
Well, we'd seen Asian stock markets as well turn into the green as that debate proceeded as well. They had been trading down at the start of the day, so this is the picture a short time ago in the Asian markets. You see Japan, the Kospi in Seoul, the Hang Seng in Hong Kong and the Shanghai Composite Index all seeing gains. Investors also digesting the news from China that industrial profits hit their highest level in almost 3 years, seen as a sign of stabilisation in the Chinese economy. On the European markets today, we're seeing gains at the open as well. Some optimism too on the outcome of the US debate as well. Of course, markets feed into each other, so gains in Asia tends to translate into gains in Europe as well. Now, there'll be lots of focus on the European markets, on banks today. That's after the big falls that we saw in the sector on Monday. Deutsche Bank was at the centre of that. Shares in the bank opening up around 1% today. That's after they had a dreadful day on Monday, hitting a 23-year low, down 7.5%. Lots of concerns around the bank's financial health and a demand from the US Department of Justice that it pays $14 billion in fines. Investors had taken fright after reports over the weekend the German government had ruled out providing any aid to the lender. Now, the bank has denied that it sought help from Berlin. Its shares, though, down more than 50% since the start of the year. No great recovery today.
Back to France now for this story. Some bad news for the government on unemployment.
The number of people registered as unemployed in France rose by more than 50,000 in August. That's up 1.4%. It's the biggest monthly rise in nearly 3 years and comes after a steady decline in previous months. Now, President Hollande has staked his reputation on cutting unemployment. These latest figures won't provide much comfort to him. The Employment Minister, Mariam El Khomri, says the terror attack in Nice in July had an impact on the employment market. Let's take a listen.
We had forecast difficulties in the wake of the Nice attacks in July, particularly in the tourism sector, hotels, restaurants and shops. Those expectations have unfortunately been confirmed. We know there are lots of men and women who are battling to find a job, and we are even more motivated to improve these results.
Some more of the day's business headlines for you now. Germany's Commerzbank could be set to cut up to 9,000 jobs, according to reports. The German newspaper Handelsblatt says the job cuts are part of a €1 billion restructuring plan at the country's second biggest lender. Commerzbank employs more than 50,000 people, but like many European banks, its profits have been squeezed by negative interest rates. Audi's chief engineer has resigned as investigations continue into the emissions scandal at parent company VOLKSWAGEN. Stefan Knirsch joined the management board at the brand in January. It's reported that he agreed to resign when an internal probe into the emissions scandal cast doubt over his assertion that he had no knowledge of the illegal test cheating software. And former workers at the American bank Wells Fargo have filed a second class action lawsuit over the fake account scandal at the lender. The case accuses Wells Fargo of orchestrating a fraudulent scheme, forcing workers to participate in setting up bogus accounts or risk losing their jobs. More than 5,000 Wells Fargo workers were sacked over the setting up of 2 million customers' accounts without their knowledge. The bank, though, says it's been misrepresented in this lawsuit.
Last one from Stephen. A new study showing that the gender pay gap is also affecting the number of wealthy women.
This is analysis carried out by the London School of Economics. It found that there were very few women among the richest people in OECD countries. In the UK, for example, women made up only 9% of the richest 0.1% of the population. The research found that the proportion of women in the top 10% had risen since the 1990s, but there's a little change at the very top. And that, of course, related to the gender pay gap, as we know, but generally speaking, wealth not reaching the very top sections.
I'll tell you where it is reaching. It's reaching in the US to two certain people, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, slightly rich, I have to say, both of them, and